which YouTubers do you despise the most? You really think we're going to answer that question? Yes, I am going to answer that question, and it may surprise you.
Hello, I'm Liz.
And I'm Jamie.
Welcome to Follow the Boat, in which we discuss what it's really like to give it all up to live on a boat.
And go travelling around the world. We've been doing it since 2006, and we're still at it.
Each week we talk about our latest YouTube video.
And about boats, sailing, travel, or anything else which floats into our heads.
And if you leave a comment we like, we'll give you an answer and a name check. Peace and fair winds.
This week we're going to be answering your questions, and there's a very good reason for that. For those watching the video version of this, I think if you look around me, it'll be very easy to tell why. And that's because I am back in the UK. You can tell I'm in the UK because I'm wearing a t-shirt. It's something I don't normally do when we're in the tropics because I sweat them out within a few seconds. Hope you appreciate this t-shirt, by the way. It's one of the t-shirts we sell in our shop. If you got the mail out last week, you would have got a little discount voucher for our shop. So if you feel like supporting us, head on over to our shop anyway. I'm back in the UK really to celebrate my father's 80th and a few other reasons as well. And Liz, meanwhile, is staying on the boat, hopefully cleaning it and getting it in order for my return. So we're going to answer some of your questions this week, and we asked you to be brutal with your questions, and we got some brutal questions.
Jack Dunn wants to know if we ever get bored. Do you ever get bored?
Well, I thought I would answer that question at this particular location to make a point. We are at the dump, which Mum jokingly said, we can't call it the dump anymore, it's called the recycle centre. Anyway, I think to answer the question about getting bored is really, it's less about context and where you are and more about you as a person. The reason why I wanted to answer this question here, because here we have behind me somewhere my parents emptying leaves that they've been cutting in the garden and spare bits of wood from Dad's DIY work. Mum and Dad never stop. They're in their 80s and they are still going down the town every day, and they are very active people, and I think that's where I get it from. I cannot sit still for more than 5 minutes, so it's very difficult to get bored. It doesn't matter where I am, whether it's on the boat or back home in the UK, there is always something to do, and I think that's something both Liz and I share, is that we are very good at entertaining ourselves.
I don't think I've ever been bored in my life. There's always so much to do, but on a boat there's really no excuse to be bored because there really is loads to do. Like, for instance, right now, at the moment, I am filling up with water. One of the millions of chores that we have to do. When we're in the marina, it's much, much easier to turn on the tap, stick the hose in the deck, and there it is, filling up, and it does it really quickly here. So, do we ever get bored? Well, to be honest, Jamie and I are so busy all of the time doing stuff. If it's not boaty stuff, it's not sailing or travelling or recording something or watching helicopters go overhead. We're doing something else. So we've both got too many projects on the go at all stages, and we never get them all done. Oh look, I've already filled up. I filled the other side earlier, and obviously this side doesn't need it, so there we go, look. Oops.
I can't think of a time when I've been bored since I was a kid.
So the next question is from Sav on Patreon, who is a friend of ours. We met him in Thailand quite a few years ago now. A lovely bloke, Sav. He says, how on earth, literally, are you still friends? And what do you do so you don't upset your significant other and don't give them the shits, in his words? Right, so first of all, are we still friends? Were we ever friends?
I wonder that myself sometimes.
Yes, of course we're still friends. Jamie's my best friend, probably. What I mean, probably, certainly. He's like a part of me. It's quite difficult. We're separated at the moment because I'm here on the boat in Malaysia and he's in the UK. Always a bit difficult to come to terms with when he's not here. First few days, then I sort of settle into a routine. But yes, we've always been friends, we remain friends, and I think that word friend is the important one here.
It's about respect and compromise, respecting each other's space We give each other our space on the boat, and compromising when it comes to, you know, if you have an off day, don't hold grudges, that kind of thing. I mean, you know, when you're on a boat, you are with each other 24/7 in a confined space, let's face it. But of course, if you're at anchor, you can go ashore, you can go kayaking, beach combing, provisioning, whatever. There's lots of things to do when you're at anchor, but when you're actually stuck on the boat itself, well, when you're sailing, it's a different story. That's when you're working as a team. And, you know, if you've been doing it long enough, you know each other well, you know what's expected of each other. And so, you know, we don't really have problems when we're actually sailing. I think you're more likely to have problems when you're stuck somewhere and you're both getting a bit frustrated, or maybe you're tired.
Friendship, I think, is probably the most important relationship you can have in the world. You don't choose your family, but you do choose your friends, and you choose someone who you love, respect, and share life's values with. And that's what it is with Jamie and me. We both completely agree on everything, I should think. Pretty much everything, apart from some of his music's a little bit extreme for me. But other than that, I think we do pretty much agree on everything. So yeah, friendship comes first. Everything else comes after that in his bunts. You have to love each other and respect each other.
It's not really relevant about the fact that we're on a boat. It comes down to relationships generally. I mean, look at my dear old mum and dad who are just walking in front of me. Been together for, what, just under 60 years. And they're with each other all the time. And in fact, Mum was even answering this question in the car, because I showed her this question, and she said the same thing. It's basically not to hold grudges and not to go to bed on an argument. I mean, I think these are pretty straightforward tips on successful relationships, irrespective of whether you live on a boat or if you live on land.
What you need is a little bit of patience, a little bit of tolerance, a little bit of kindness when you're on a boat, because there ain't that much room. And to be honest, patience, tolerance and kindness are virtues that the whole world could do with right now. And I think if you can try and do that with everybody, not just the person you're in a relationship with, maybe we'd have less bad news going on at the moment.
We're at one of my parents' favourite spots for lunch. So I've come here and answer the question about food. And the question was asked, what food do we like on the boat and off the boat? It's always an appropriate seg to discuss food generally. I think in the UK, Brits have got a bit of a bad reputation for food, haven't we? And yet we have some of the most famous chefs in the world. And I have to say, now that I'm back here, and you come to places like Debden Barnes, which is where we're at now, there are so many farm shops here, and the food on offer for breakfast, lunch and dinner these days is exceptional. They always have very good menus. But in terms of food on the boat and off the boat, I have to say, off the boat, I still love a pizza. It's not something we eat that often, so when I do see a pizza on the menu, I'll almost invariably go for it. The other thing I do like, which I picked up in Indonesia, is just very basic fish and rice. It's an Indonesian staple, and I do love that kind of dish. On the boat, it's curry.
For me, it boils down to two. It boils down to Mediterranean food, where we really got to know it well in Turkey, and Indian food, which we fell in love with when we lived there for 3 years, based in Kerala. If I had to choose one or the other, I can't choose. It's Mediterranean or Indian. I would swap those, one day one, one day the next. And it's not any old Indian, it's got to be Kerala. It's got to be Kerala curries.
It's absolutely curry. Liz does more cooking than I do, and she's a bit more adventurous than me, but when I come to do the cooking, it tends to be a curry inspired by our time in India.
As for food on board, well, the obvious answer is the fish that you've caught yourself. You know, we've had some fantastic, mackerel, Spanish mackerels, wahoos, tuna. We've cooked those on board or on the beach, and they have been absolutely phenomenal. I love that. But most of the time on board, we tend to eat what the locals eat. So we'll buy in the local market or even the supermarket. We'll just buy the local food. And as we don't eat meat really, just fish, we do eat lots of unusual vegetables and fruits. And my favourite food in the world is probably fruit. And there is fruit on board at all times. Recently, while we were in Indonesia, we couldn't get enough of the dark, deep red dragon fruit. We eat pretty healthily, really. Lots of vegetable, lots of fruit, nothing pre-packaged, really. We're into our whole foods, as most people here are. In villages, you just eat fruit, veg and fish, and that's how we like it too.
Pretty easily entertained when it comes to food, to be honest. But when I'm back in the UK, I do enjoy coming to farm shops like this with mum and dad.
If you were not doing what you were doing now, what would you be doing instead? 24-hour travellers. What would I be doing now if I wasn't doing this? Well, if I wasn't doing the laundry, I'd be probably on the laptop dreaming up some ideas, or I'd be going out for a walk. There's lots of dogs here to walk and chat to, or I'd be cooking, or I'd probably be cleaning and tidying, because at the moment while Jamie's away, most of my time is spent cleaning and tidying, trying to get Esper looking stunning again. She still looks pretty good, but she's just a bit grubby here and there, so I've got to do some of that. I've got to do some varnishing, which I'm very excited about because I've never done that before, so that's what I'd be doing. But if we're thinking more generally, if I'd never started this whole lifestyle, what would I be doing now?
I would probably be doing what I'm doing right now, which is going for country walks in among oak trees. By the way, pretty much every tree you see all around me here, if you're watching on video, are oak trees. Very English. And spending time with the family. If I'd never have met Liz, I would probably be running my own business, a research consultancy business idea that I had. In fact, I formulated the business plan when I was sailing across the Atlantic, when I thought I was still just doing a bit of delivery work before returning to the UK to settle down and get a new job. I'd actually formulated a business plan in my head on that trip across the Atlantic to set up a research consultancy, which is my background, in the city. And I think if I hadn't met Liz, I probably would have gone ahead with that, because it was a real winner of an idea. No one else was doing it at the time. Of course, everything changed once I'd met Liz.
So the reason I started this, living on a boat and living permanently on a boat and going around the world, is because I met Jamie. And we sort of evolved the shared dream together, and off we went and did it. However, having said that, at the time, I was fed up, I was overworked, I was burnt out, I was getting ill all the time. I was doing so much travelling, but travelling for work, which is not the same. It was just hard graft, back and forwards to China. So I had come to the conclusion that I needed to stop doing what I was doing, preferably give up work if I could find a way. And I always reckoned, well, if I can rent the house out and just live off that income, maybe then I can do what I want to do. And I was trying to decide what I wanted to do. And travel certainly was going to be a part of it. And at that stage, not really a sailing at all. It wasn't even an idea in the back of my head. And I thought I would just perhaps go off and do voluntary service overseas, perhaps some charity type work, you know, go and work somewhere where I could use my skills, although I don't know what my skills are, management really, I suppose. So yeah, I was looking to do something that involved travel, that would broaden my horizons, that would get me away from the rat race. So who knows where I would have ended up? Who knows what country I'd be in or where I would have been by now? It's quite exciting to think about it.
What do we do about our washing? Very good question, because it's not something you see discussed on YouTube sailing channels. Well, when I'm back in the UK, I have the luxury of handing it over to my mum. I love getting my clothes washed in the UK. The laundrettes that we've come across in Southeast Asia are not a patch on my mum's washing. But when we're on the boat, it's really just hand washing or using laundry services. They never ever get the clothes as clean as you want them to though. Sorry, I realised I didn't answer that question correctly, because we were asked specifically about our bed laundry.
How often do you wash your bedding, and do you do it by hand on the boat or take it ashore? I don't think I've ever seen a sailing YouTuber cover this topic. Well, it has to be said that now that we're in a marina, it is a lot easier, because, you know, I just hand it in to the marina staff. Whoops, here I go. And I was just going to lie down when I answer this one, I think. There we go. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, so I hand it in to the marina staff and they wash it for me. However, having said that, I did recently hand wash our sheets because they go to the laundry, they never come back quite well enough done, you know, because if you've been on a boat and you lived on a boat and you worked on a boat, you know how dirty sheets can get. Blood, sweat, grease, all kinds of crap gets on these sheets, and they really need a good soaking. So I soaked them for 2 days and got all the worst of it out and actually hand washed them, and then we had some beautiful sunshine and they just baked in the sun. So it's not these ones, it's the next lot that are going to go on. They're going to be absolutely gorgeous. But at the same time, I have recently just dropped off a whole load of laundry, and I'll nip along to the office and see if it's ready.
I'd like to think that we would wash our laundry. How often should you wash your sheets and your pillows? Once every 10 days, ideally. Fortunately, we have lots of spares, so quite often you'll go without access to lots of water or laundry services for many weeks at a time. So we carry at least 2 or 3 sets of spare sheets and pillow covers and what have you. And of course, in the tropics, these things get sweaty very, very quickly. So in an ideal world, they should be cleaned every 10 days or so. But I will admit that we've gone a few weeks at a time before now. But I think because you're in the tropics, you notice it that much more quickly, and so you sort of stay on top of washing your sheets.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? You don't see much about laundry, but even less about making beds now. My original idea was I was going to set the camera up and then I was going to make the bed and I was going to time lapse it, because as anyone who's tried to make a bed on a boat knows, it takes about an hour and a half to make one, and it's the worst job on the boat. That is because you cannot get your hands down, round and through all the cracks to put the sheets in place, and when you do, they never quite fit properly. Someone I knew had sheets made perfectly to fit their extraordinary shaped mattress, but even then it was still difficult. It's just something you have to do, and you just have to get on with it. And I have to say, on Esper, it's me that does it. We'll stay up late watching stuff in the cockpit, knowing that we've got new sheets, we need to put them on the bed and no one's done it all day, and Jamie will stay up till midnight because he knows that when I go to bed I'll put the sheets on. See what he says to that, eh?
I don't think that really pans out in reality, to be honest.
Any regrets about buying an Oyster 435, which is, of course, what Esper is? Do you know what?
Absolutely not.
None. Absolutely none. There isn't a single boat in 20 years I've looked at and thought, I wish we'd had that.
Apart from Liz, the one thing that has remained consistent in the last 20 years of sailing has been Esper.
I'm not including boats that we couldn't afford, because we can't afford £1 million for a boat, certainly not a new boat or anything like that. But boats within our price range, I don't think that I would get anything other than the boat that we've got. I tell you why, it's because she is so safe.
Recently we've been going through some pretty
awful situations at sea, and you've never felt for a minute unsafe in this boat.
And it's the one thing that I feel confident about and have felt confident about is her sailing and handling ability. She has been my rock, I suppose, all this time that we've been sailing. And even though we've had her for 20 years, she's pretty much the same boat we have as when we bought her, minus the refit, of course. And she's just a solid blue water performing boat, and she's brilliant.
She is built like a brick shithouse. She is made to go through anything and everything, and we've taken her through it. One of our ventures recently, we had 5 water spouts along the side in the storm, and we just thought, oh, here we go. She was as good as gold, and she sails like a dream. Cut a rig catch, so you really just set the sails and off she goes on her own. She's turned out to be the best investment ever, and we just love her and wouldn't change her for anything.
And I have absolutely no regrets whatsoever about buying her. Well, for those who are listening to this and can't quite see it, perhaps you can hear the sound of the grass rubbing against me as I walk through chest high, overgrown nettles and weeds through this little copse of oak trees. as I answer the next question, which is,
if all the video stuff doesn't pay, why not give up and go sailing?
Whoever asked this question kind of missed the point, really. I don't think we've ever said that we don't like doing the videos. The videos have been a creative outlet that we've really enjoyed and continue to enjoy, and will continue to do for years to come, I think, because we just love the whole process.
Strange one that, because we have just done a whole episode on not caring about YouTube and the money and everything. So it doesn't pay us well, but it does pay us quite well because we get some fantastic support from people. We've got patrons and FDB mates who do support us, so that is great. And I don't suppose they would if we didn't have a video channel. We love making videos. It's our outlet, it's our art form, I suppose. It's our creative time. And it's always been a part of our travels for 20 years. We've recorded what we do in some way or another. So, yeah, we go sailing. I don't know what that's all about, really.
It doesn't get in the way of the sailing because, in fact, we like to sail and travel to places. We just happen to record them and do a little bit of extra work in editing them and publishing them. But it doesn't get in the way at all. Don't feel like it does. Would be nice to get paid a bit more for doing it, of course. That would be a nice bonus, but you know, even that, as we've explained recently in one of our recent videos when we talked about earnings from YouTube, it's not going to stop us from making videos. And that is because the drive for making videos and podcasts and doing the photography is a creative one and not a financial one.
What happened to our Japan adventures? Loads of people have asked, why haven't we gone to Japan, which is something we did talk about 5 years ago, did a whole load of research on it. We're really looking forward to it. Well,
I feel like we've answered this question a few times now.
We've answered this before, but I will answer it a bit more in detail and directly this time. We were planning to go to Japan, and from Japan we were going to go across the northern part of the Pacific, and we were going to end up in hopefully Canada, if not then certainly in Northwest America, depending on the weather. That was Thailand. However, since then, various things happened. Both my parents, who were in their 90s, became ill. And first Mum died and then Dad died, and so that took a lot of my time up and meant that we didn't really go very far. We remained in the Thailand, Malaysian area. We were sailing a lot, but each year I was going back for a few months to see them. So that put pay to any long passages or any sort of long-term plans. We were treading water rather. It was a hard time for me, and Jamie was a great support, and so I didn't really want to think about anything other than those two. So that was a few years ago, and then shortly after Dad died we started on our big adventure, going around Sumatra and through the Mentawai Islands down to Jakarta and to all of those amazing places. And on our way back we were heading up to Sabah, which is northern Borneo, and from there we were going to go to the Philippines, and from there to make the hop up to Japan would have been really easy.
For those who missed it, COVID happened. We were on our way up Borneo. We had problems with Millie, and sadly we lost Millie when we were in Borneo, but the plan was to then move on to the Philippines and up to Japan. And then COVID and lockdown happened. And what happened was we got stuck there for 2 years. We weren't allowed to move anywhere, and eventually, just as time was running out in Malaysia, which was still in strict lockdown, Indonesia opened up its borders, and that really became the only viable option for us. We do know people that went on to the Philippines, but it was done illegally because the Philippines officially hadn't opened its borders. We, however, wanted to push on and get back to the UK, for me to get back to the UK. And so Indonesia became the only option. And of course, Indonesia is in completely the wrong direction.
So, Japan, will it happen? I don't know. A bit of a ... on that, because we're not sure what we're going to do next. And if you've got any ideas what you think we should do next, whether we should go to Japan or whether we should turn around and go back the other way, or we should spend another 10 years here in Southeast Asia, which we love, let us know in the comments.
Well, for those listening and not watching, I've just walked through a little oak copse, and I'm now walking across a little bridge over a dried up stream. out into a cornfield which unusually has not been harvested. Most of the fields in this area have already been harvested. And I suppose now I should answer the question about how we stop Esper from getting smelly. We don't. Actually, there is one thing that we do occasionally, is to put, here's a little tip for you, put fabric conditioner in your bilges.
There's no reason why a boat should smell. Can't see any reason why. I mean, how do you stop your house being smelly? It's the same question, really. Don't leave dead things around. Clean up after you. Empty the bins. There is a problem sometimes with condensation and moisture, and I don't know if that's what you mean, if you're worried about mildew and that sort of thing. But we keep all the windows open all the time if we can, if it's not raining, so there's plenty of fresh air coming through, and that really is important. But don't leave smelly things around.
We don't get many visitors on board these days, and so no one has actually said to us, well, your boat smells. Maybe it does, and maybe we've just got used to each other's smells and we don't notice them. Well, this is an appropriate one for me to answer. What do you miss most when you're away from the boat? Liz, of course, because she's on the boat and I'm not currently. I think I get brownie points for saying that.
Obviously, I miss the boat. I miss everything about living on the boat, about being in the sea, about being here. So that's the thing I miss most when I'm away from the boat, is the boat.
I was thinking about this morning, actually. I guess it's just the freedom. And it's not just the freedom that the boat itself offers, it's actually being in Asia. We find Asia a very free place to travel around. That, you know, you don't have, at least to our knowledge, there aren't so many sort of written rules and restrictions about what you can and can't do. And so I miss that, although I have to say, since being back, I haven't felt that kind of claustrophobia yet. Waking up on water. I love going to sleep at anchor and waking up at anchor, providing the anchorage is comfortable, of course. That's one thing that I really do treasure, and that ability to move the boat around and to wake up in different locations each morning.
What maintenance do you put off till it's no longer maintenance and is now a repair, compared to what maintenance must be done no matter the cost or inconvenience?
Very good question, this, because I think we're probably guilty of pretty much everything. It is very easy to sit on jobs and to ignore them. I think on the whole, with the engine, we're pretty good at keeping a sort of regular schedule of just general checks, you know, making things aren't worn or that bolts haven't come loose, checking the filters, that kind of thing. We stay on top of because we can't afford to lose that. But it is quite easy sometimes to just completely forget about, say, turning the seacocks every month so that they don't seize up. Sometimes you can forget that and then they seize up. So rigging, maybe, I suppose that's another one. Not the world's greatest expert on rigging, so I think our rigging could probably do with a little bit of tuning.
Because we live in full time, 24/7, 12 months of the year on the boat, we're very in tune with Esper, so we know when things are starting to look a bit ropey. We don't have a schedule as such. Obviously, there are things you do before you go, before you set off anywhere. We do all of those things. But we're not spending days at anchor with a screwdriver in our hand unless there's a particular job that we need to be doing.
Yeah, on the whole, we try and stay on top of the very basics so that they don't become major issues. Back on the gravelly road now. Sorry about the weather today. It was sunny earlier. I think one or two of these clips you'll have some sunshine, but it sort of clouded over. It's not too chilly though. Normally I'm the first to get very cold, what we've been used to the tropics, but it's a nice little cool breeze, but nothing too horrendous. Now this next question I wanted to answer while in a field listening to my favourite bird song.
Jordan of Flowmads asked us about birding and how into it we are.
We call it twitching in the UK. I don't know if that's an international expression. I was a member of the Young Ornithologist Club when I was a kid. My next door neighbour used to buy the membership as a Christmas present for me. And I spent my childhood drawing pictures of all the common birds that we would get in the UK. I suppose I lost a bit of interest in that over the time that I lived in big cities. But as we've spent more time offshore in the countryside, and I can think of India in particular. I think Liz and I have become very interested in birds. Liz has got very good at identifying a lot of the tropical birds now, so it is something that I think non-sailors may be surprised to learn, that bird life is a big part of sailing.
We're hugely into birds, and I think anyone who's a sailor will agree when we say how important birds are to you. I think my favourite bird, oh, it's so difficult, I mean, how do you choose? But one of my favourite birds is definitely terns.
From terns to boobies to white-bellied sea eagles, there are a lot of birds that we see every day when we're sailing, and they really make up part of that whole sailing scene for us. It's a big part of it.
There is a sheer joy in a tern. They love being out at sea. They're proper little wanderers, and they spend most of their time on the wing. Whenever you see them around the boat, they make funny little noises, they flitter around. One of the main things they do is sit on bits of debris that are floating in the sea, just to get a bit of a rest. And it's really useful for us sailors, because it might be a big log that you can't really see, because like icebergs you only see a tenth of the log that's in the water, and you'll see a row of terns all sitting in a line, and that tells you there's something in the water you need to be a bit careful of. So terns are splendid and wonderful little animals, and they're all around the world, and they're a proper sailor's friend.
My favourite bird song, you didn't ask this, but I'm going to tell you anyway, is I've completely forgotten now. They hover above the lark, skylark, of course. That is my favourite bird song of all time. It brings back lots of memories as a child, going to visit my grandparents who used to live by a field. And the skylark is a very noisy bird, especially when there are other people around, because it makes a bird call to sort of warn potential predators away from its nest, because they tend to nest in the fields, and so their territory is a kind of column above their nest. But love that bird song. Yeah, we're into birding. Maybe not as much as you, but we're into them.
Right, Peter and Anne want to know what sailing qualifications we've got. Jamie can talk at quite some length on this, can't you, Jamie?
Not so much qualifications, I suppose. We've done our various courses. I've got my Yachtmaster Theory, my Coastal Skipper Practical. Never got around to doing the Yachtmaster Practical. And I always recommend doing these courses. They're very good. They force you to think about some of the essentials, and I could probably do doing some of them again. I've probably forgotten half of it. There is one other though. There is I think it's called the ICC. This is the International Certificate of Competence. And I think back in the day, this was the qualification that you needed to travel through France. Now, I don't know if that's changed these days, but that is one thing that we had to make sure that we had. But yeah, I would recommend doing any of those courses. They're just a great way of, well, meeting other people, learning through different skippers, and either picking up on basics that you didn't know, or maybe just to refresh your memory on things that you'd forgotten about.
I have one certificate. I've got a competent crew course which I did in Devon before I met Jamie for a week on a small sailing boat. I learnt all the basics, realised that I loved it, was quite good at it, was never sick, and enjoyed every aspect of it. So that's me.
What is the worst anchorage that we've ever been in? We've had a few tight spots, and the anchorages that spring to mind that have caused us the most grief are not necessarily the anchorages themselves, but the surrounding boats around us, or even objects. I think we've talked about how we've found ourselves anchored next to fish attracting or aggregation devices, those floating devices that the Indonesian fishermen use to attract the fish. When they're not tethered properly and a squall picks up, they can be really problematic.
It's difficult to talk about the worst anchorage. I don't think there's any anchorage that I've hated, that I really disliked. I just don't think, there's always something to see at an anchorage, because when you're in the sea, you're forever looking at the sea. And you see turtles and dolphins and all kinds of fish and bird life, and that is enough to keep me enthralled and happy. I suppose some of the more industrial anchorages are not quite so nice.
Really, it's any anchorage when you get caught out by the weather and you find yourself having to get up at 2 in the morning to contend with normally other people's dragging anchors, not your own. Sometimes if all anchors dragged, it would make life a lot easier, but that doesn't really happen like that. It's normally fishing boats whose anchors drag, and that can be quite a terrifying experience. I can't really think of any anchorages where we've got there and thought, oh, this is horrendous, let's move on.
I can't think of anywhere that I didn't really like. No, difficult, isn't it? There's always something to like.
Maybe some of the more touristic spots in Thailand, around Phuket perhaps, but even then there's nothing in particular that I can think of. Yeah, it really comes down to circumstance and weather.
Okay, what's our favourite point of sail? Ooh, I wonder if Jamie will say the same as me. Now, because we've got a cutter rig ketch, she sails really beautifully to wind.
Well, Esper's favourite point of sail is probably different to our favourite point of sail perhaps. I think most people love a broad reach. I do like getting the code 0 out, so really anything from the beam, around the beam with the code 0 is always good fun. But Esper's strength lies in going into wind.
And I know that people don't like sailing to wind, but I love sailing to wind, providing the sea's not too uncomfortable, that you haven't got enormous waves coming straight at you, and you've got enough of an angle. We can go very close hauled with a lot of wind coming at us, and we can go fast, and we can sit steady as a rock in that position. It feels great. I mean, you've got the wind coming at you as well, which I love. I love that wind coming at me. I hate it when it's coming from behind and you don't feel any benefit of the wind on yourself in the cockpit, and you're rolling from side to side. Whereas when you're going straight into wind, when you've got that nice little bit of wind on the front being cut up with the cutter rig, you just sit perfectly flat.
And when you've got the sails balanced right, you don't even need the autopilot. With those 4 sails, she just slices through the water when going into wind. I just love that point of sail because I just feel so comfortable on her.
Close hauled. I know it's weird, but it's my favourite.
Do we miss Millie and would we get another pet? Yes, of course we miss Millie. I still struggle to look at photos of her and watch videos of her, even though it was now some years ago since she passed away. And you know, we spent 13 years with her, and like Liz, she was a part of my life pretty much 24/7.
It was like losing a family member. She'd been with us for so long. She'd been with us from Turkey, and she's such an engaging little animal. I mean, there's a still big hole in my heart from losing Millie. And yes, I would absolutely kill to have another cat or a dog on board, but never again, simply because
one of the issues with having a pet on board is the commitment.
They are so much of a responsibility. If you're going to be a proper animal owner, you can't leave them. You've got to be with them, you've got to look after them. And they're a tie. You know, we can't just leave the boat and bugger off for a couple of weeks with a cat. You've got to, certainly not with a dog, you've got to be with them 24/7. So not for us. I don't think we're ready to have another animal on board. But having said that,
we have 2 Tokais living on board Esper, and they have been with us for over a year now.
They're still with us. I'm still hearing the Tokai noise up the mast in the evening. It goes like this. Tokai, Tokai, Tokai. If you haven't heard it. It's a very, very distinct sound. They are really big geckos and they eat cockroaches, which is why they are revered in people's homes over here. People love them and they actually pay quite a lot of money for them. We haven't seen a cockroach on Esper for over a year. Marvellous animals. So yeah, I've got Mr. T and T2, they're our current pets.
All the wind's picking up now. It's getting a bit foreboding. Maybe it's going to rain. An appropriate time to answer this question, which is, which YouTubers do you despise the most?
Naughty Kirk Brunson, trying to stir it up, asking us who are the YouTubers you despise the most. Oh no.
You really think we're going to answer that question? Yes, I am going to answer that question, and it may surprise you, although maybe it won't do if you are familiar with various YouTubers.
I'm presuming you mean sailing YouTubers. Jamie won't be able to answer this one because he doesn't watch any of them.
I don't really watch sailing YouTube channels. It's a bit of a busman's holiday for me, so there aren't any sort of YouTube sailors that, well, either I would admit to disliking or really actually dislike anyway, because I think it's great that there are lots of YouTube sailing channels out there.
I watch a few now and again, and there are some that make my toes curl. And there are some I quite like, and I'm not going to name either of them, but I think you all know that what I can't bear, and neither can Jamie, is when the wrong information is given out, or there's been a slapdash throwaway comment about stuff and it's completely wrong, potentially dangerous, because a lot of the people who watch this, and this might apply to you, are wanting to learn about what it's like to be a liveaboard. So I really don't like it when people are not honest about what it's like living on a boat. It is hard. It's not a holiday. It is hard work. You know, you've got to do a lot of things yourself, and they take time and they cost money. So if a YouTube channel is being honest about the way they live and the places they're going to, and they're kind about the cultures, and they are prepared to learn when they go to new countries, fantastic. I can't bear the bullshit and I can't bear the drama. That's all I'm going to say.
The YouTubers I despise are the likes of Logan and Jake Paul. In particular, Logan Paul, who has made millions out of his followers on YouTube and is currently dealing with lots of court cases for fraud.
Thanks everybody who sent in comments. We haven't even done half of them. So we're going to do a part 2 with a whole load more comments. Thank you once again for sticking with us, for watching this channel, for subscribing, for commenting, and particular thanks to those that support us. It never fails to amaze us that you do. Thank you.
Oh, back to my childhood. Not going very fast.